Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Everybody, welcome to Scott Fox After 9. This is going to be a fun episode. Today is a day where I'm waiting to see what's going to happen. The Prime Minister is down in Washington, and I'm sure you've heard that there's the possibility that this thing could go south, literally and figuratively. I don't know how good or bad a day Mark Carney's going to have, but that's something that's going to be on tomorrow's podcast because as I record, it hasn't happened yet. But there are 2 things in particular I'm going to cover in this episode. I hope you can stick around for this one because we had a really historic day in Canada yesterday when Alberta Premier Danielle Smith came out and said she wants Canada to remain together and she is not going to call for a referendum on sovereignty. But if enough signatures come in, she's absolutely going to hold a referendum on Alberta sovereignty. It was a fantastic speech. I thought she covered all the angles and got all the important things in. I'm going to play that for you coming up in this episode. But before I get to that, I'm going to bring her in again. She is popular on this podcast by popular demand, Ana Almeida. Hey, Ana, how you doing?
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Today, I want to talk to you about the hockey players from the World Juniors. This happened years ago in London. The trial is on now. It's a sexual assault case. And I know you've been doing a lot of reading on this. And I want to talk to you about it, Ana, because I think there are conversations happening. And it seems like every day something else comes out that makes me feel differently about this story. And it brings back into the realm, what is consent?
Well, that's the big topic of discussion, yeah.
Totally. So we're going to talk about that in just a sec. First off, I got to do what you need to know. Gas prices did not change overnight. The average today is $1.33.9. The reason I want to highlight that is because yesterday, oil closed down another $1.16 US at $57.13 a barrel. It's under $60 a barrel and our gas prices are not going down. And Ana, we're having all these conversations. We have been since during the election campaign about Canada becoming an energy superpower. We've got a lot of oil. I know they're not paying these gas prices in Dubai. I know they're not paying these gas prices in America. They're not paying them in Saudi Arabia, but we have just as much oil, if not more than them. Why are we paying so much more? I still haven't heard a good answer for that. What are we celebrating today? It is National Nurses Day, National Teachers Appreciation Day, and National Foster Care Day. Lotto Max tonight is for $75 million and 12 Max Million draws. Good luck, everybody. And quickly, I do want to say I'm thinking a lot about Anthony Stolarz, goalie for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Anna, did you watch the hit?
You know what? I watched the hit this morning, and I'm kind of happy I watched it later because it is triggering. I mean, you see him go down, and right away he protects his head, so you know he's hurt immediately. Then he goes over to the bench. He starts throwing up.
Well, I've done a lot of concussion courses over the years because of my involvement in sports, and if somebody throws up, that's a serious concussion indicator. So I'm glad they took him to the hospital. Well, all of us were watching the third period last night. He was on a stretcher being taken to the hospital. And I don't think anybody in Scotiabank Arena last night realized it was that serious until afterwards when reports came out that he went to the hospital. I'm thinking about him. I've known people that have had serious head injuries, and it wasn't just the hit last night.
Thank you for bringing this up.
He also took a puck off the mask. And I don't know if I've mentioned this. My son is a goalie in lacrosse. And a lacrosse ball and a hockey puck have a lot of similarities. And I can't tell you, Anna, how many times he came off the floor after a game, having taken one right off the dome there, off his mask, and he was shaken up. He was rattled. And that's when it's tough for parents. If you are the parent of a high-performance athlete, someone who's got potential to maybe play in the pros someday, and they come out with that injury, it really does put you in an awkward spot, because I did not want to let my son go back on the floor after he was showing signs of a concussion. But if he says he feels fine and he wants to get back in the game, that's when you have to make a bit of a judgment call and go through concussion protocol and really try and figure out how injured they are. And if they are injured, it's tough to tell your kid, I get it, I know you want to play, but I'm shutting you down. It's good when you have the support of an athletic therapist or a trainer to back you up, but not all parents have that. And I know I'm not the only parent who's been in that position where kid says they're fine, but your gut's telling you they're hurt, and you got to be the one to tell them you're not going back out there.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
it.
And I can't imagine the coaching team, and they're in the second round of the playoffs. Like, this is such a career moment for him, and to not even be able to play the last period of the game, being up so much. And then, yeah, we're going to see. I hope they sit him out. I think that would be the right thing to do regardless, concussion or not, because we're up in the series. So that's a good sign. And then, reassess from there. But yeah, speedy recovery. Hopefully we'll get some answers.
Okay, Anna, let's get to the topic that I wanted to bring you in for on this episode. I want to talk quickly about, not even quickly, let's take a little bit of time on this one. I'm going to read the story first off, as is written by the Canadian Press. A woman told court she felt numb and on autopilot, end quote, going through sexual acts with a group of men she didn't know in a London hotel room 7 years ago. Her identity is protected under a publication ban in the sexual assault trial of 5 players on Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team. She told court she was naked, drunk, and scared when men started coming into the hotel room where she had just had sex with player Michael McLeod, one of 5 accused in the case. The woman told court the men wanted her to lie down on a bedsheet on the floor of the room and seemed to be laughing at her as they discussed sexual acts that they wanted her to perform, including one involving golf balls and a golf club. McLeod, Carter Hart, Alex Formanton, Dylan Dubé, and Callan Foote have all pled not guilty to sexual assault. The reason that I think that this is a tricky story, and I don't pretend to know all the details. I haven't been in the court. I'm reading the same synopsises that most people are in various online publications and in the paper. But here's what I've been able to tell so far about this story. She was at a bar. The players were at a bar. And what was it? McLeod she was with? Is that the guy she originally...
that's who she was dancing with at Jack's.
So she was at Jack's bar.
Yeah, in London.
Having a good time. She agreed to go back to his hotel. Mm-hmm. They had sex. And it was purely consensual. There's no disagreement on that. Even though she claims she was drunk, she claims everything was fine, no problem. Now, we also know that at some point, a text message got sent to other members of the team asking them if they wanted to take a turn with this girl. Mm-hmm. And when other guys started showing up at the hotel room, Michael McLeod left. I think that's right. He left, or he was in and out of the room or something like that. I may have a couple of these details wrong, by the way. That's not coming from a bad or nefarious place on my end. It's simply just a bad recall. But anyway, more guys came down to the room, and it seems like multiple acts, sexual ones, happened with all of the different guys that showed up at the room. There's a video that was filmed that night, and I have to think that these players knew what they were doing was probably going to be controversial or contentious or what have you, because they asked her on video when they were recording if everything that was happening was consensual. She agreed. Mm-hmm. She said it was consensual. Mm-hmm. There was also some text messages sent the following day between McLeod and the girl where she indicated that she wasn't comfortable necessarily. However, she did agree at some point that this was a consensual thing. Where are we at now here, Anna? Because I think I've given enough of the Coles notes here that the players were under the impression it was consensual. She now doesn't say or says it wasn't consensual because she was having somewhat of an out-of-body experience. Yeah. Which, by the way, I guess I can understand and appreciate. I'm not a woman, and I'm not going to pretend to know what that feels like. But if you're in that situation and, you just had sex with a guy, you had a good time, great. I don't know how the topic of inviting more guys to come into this came up or whose idea that was or why they thought that was appropriate. But either way, it happened. And it wasn't like she was confined in the room per se. Apparently she started crying at one point and the guy said, oh, you can't leave while you're crying. Let's work it out, whatever. Again, I don't know all of the details, but it does seem like both consent was given and she had indicated that she felt uncomfortable. And that's why I'm not exactly sure where this goes from here. How she ended up in that room with all those guys performing all those sex acts. There's also a discussion about how drunk she was, because apparently she says in one of these videos she's not drunk.
She says she's sober. And, this is where, this is a heavy topic. So I'm sure this could be triggering for many people if you're listening to this, and if you've gone through a similar experience. So we're just going to continue on in case you want to just pause on this and then pick up the podcast in a little bit. However, if you are interested, this is a big case. I mean, it happened in a hotel room in 2018. We're getting more information as this trial goes on. I feel for the jurors because it's a very hard thing to process. There's a lot of different information trying to connect everything. But she said she was sober in this video that has been released. There's 2 videos. One of them of she and McLeod dancing at the club and then making their way to the hotel. Then there is after all the deeds were done that she says, no, I was sober. That's why it's okay. I'm paraphrasing, okay? But basically that she was sober. And she wasn't the one who initially called the police. You see, she went home. She was upset. She told her mom what happened. And it was her mom who made the call to the police. So, and that's where everything started to unfold. So that's, did she say, I consent after the deed was done, and they got her on camera saying that as a way to cover their butts,
right?
Because we don't know, like, did she say, oh, I'm unsure, and then was convinced? Like, that's the thing that the jury has to now prove, or the defendant in the courtroom.
Maybe it's different now, but I'm going to suggest that 7 years ago, 2018, it wasn't top of mind for every guy to explicitly get consent on video. But for some reason, these players did. And I'm wondering, was that really consent? Maybe she did give consent.
Maybe she
felt bad afterwards that she just did that with like 6 different guys.
And you can go
I don't know where her mindset was, but it does seem like there was consent there, or she at least agreed with them that everything that happened was consensual.
But you can also almost go into like a fight or flight mode where you can turn off your feelings and kind of just go into this like robotic mode of like, let's just do this. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but this is also during the height of the Me Too movement. Do you know what I mean? When that was all going on. So of course they wanted to cover their butts as well in case the story changed, which it seems like it has, but she could have. And she says, I felt numb and I was an autopilot after the encounter. And in the testimony, she talks about how they had sex. It was fine. It was consensual. And then she was surprised to see how quickly afterwards, McLeod started getting dressed and going towards the door, and he was on his phone. And then soon after, that's when all these guys started to show up from the team. And I think she probably felt some sort of way, doesn't want to be that girl, like embarrassed to kind of speak up. But also, are you ever going to be in a situation like this ever again? Like these hockey players could be pros one day. I don't know. Like,
I don't know either. I've also heard that she had a boyfriend, and part of the reason that this is coming out is because she didn't want her boyfriend to know that she cheated.
Okay.
Or didn't want to make it seem like she willingly cheated. I don't know how that factors into it. Again, I wasn't there, so please accept that we're kind of speculating a little bit here, but it comes back to a couple of important questions, consent being one of them. I don't know what would have made McLeod send out that text message to the other guys saying if anybody wants to have, I think he said a three-way.
It was yeah.
If anybody wants to have a three-way, come to room 209.
Yes.
And 6 guys showed up. That's a weird thing. If I'm staying in a hotel and I've got a bunch of buddies in the hotel and they send a text and say, who wants to be in a three-way?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Keep me out of that. I don't know who you found or what she's willing to do, but no thanks.
But they're young men. I'm not condoning it, but they're young. They're in that season of their life where this is an opportunity. If this is consensual, like, okay, let's go have some fun. These are stories we tell our buddies one day when we're older. And then, it's just, it's so hard to say, where does the consent? Did she give him consent? But then the other 2 not consent? Was she okay with one thing, but then not? Because that is okay. You can say no to certain things and yes to others. You know what I mean? But then that's where that line in the sand is, like where you teeter.
That's the thing. And you know what? For those who don't know, consent can be withdrawn at any time. Anytime you can say stop and the other person has to stop, or it turns into something else that's illegal. In this particular case, I don't know that she said stop.
Yeah.
Because all that I've heard so far is, for whatever reason, McLeod had it in his head that he needed to find more guys for this girl. And guys showed up, absolutely. But that's a serious escalation from I hooked up with a guy in his hotel room to 6 guys that are all pulling their pants down, ready for a you-know-what.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why she would go through with that. I mean, presumably she was okay. She said, I think at that point she was sober, wasn't she?
Yeah, she says she was sober. And even text messages to follow, like the following days, she received one from a player and she's like, holy, it's fine. Like, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically relax. And then another one being like, I hope you make this go away. But maybe she felt peer pressured. I mean, in any sort of situation, if all these people are coming in, this is an outsider looking in. People are shaming her. Why didn't she just get up and go? Leave the hotel room, right?
Yeah.
But that's one of those things. Like, she's capable. She could have easily got up and she could have said no and gone. Instead, she stayed. However, went on autopilot, things happen, and it's easy to get caught up in the moment and then have those regrets. But regret is different than rape. That's the difference.
Okay, that's a fair point. I'm glad you pointed that out. In this case, like I said, it was an escalation to go from one guy having sex with to 6 guys showing up and they're all pulling their pants down. If she was going to say, whoa, this is not what I'm interested in, I assume, based on the fact that these guys were conscious of what consent is, they got her on video to say that she consents. I have to assume that she knew her options anyway.
Or she did it and wanted to get the hell out of there and it was embarrassed. You know what I mean? You're in that mindset. I'm trying to put myself in a situation like that where you're thinking, okay, oh my gosh, I just need to do this and get the hell out of here and never think about this ever again, and you feel embarrassed where somebody's like, come on, man, like, come on, girl, like, just do it. Like, this person does it, this is just me guessing. I'm not saying that this is what happened, but it's easy to get into a situation like that, especially if people have been drinking, and even if she's sobering up, your judgment's impaired, but also you're just in a situation where you're so far deep that you don't even know how to get out of it sometimes, So
I'd heard that the players who came in afterwards were quite disrespectful.
Yes.
They were calling her names,
Yeah.
and I think that's part of the reason that this turned. Nearest I can tell anyway, there was some sort of a discussion about bringing in more guys. And I don't know if she thought McLeod was going to stay and be part of that. It seems like he just wanted to go and wanted to get more guys to come and do whatever. I don't know that the original intention was rape. And I don't know that there's evidence to suggest rape, especially when there's text messages and video to say there's consent. But when she's saying she was basically on autopilot, she felt numb. She was having almost an out-of-body experience, almost like above looking down, watching herself do these things with these guys.
This is why it's so triggering.
Well, this is the thing, and I'm trying to figure out if she didn't explicitly withdraw consent or give consent, where are we at then? Well, I mean, the consent is on the video and in the text messages.
Yeah.
If she didn't actually say no, what if she was incapable of saying no?
Well, that's it. You go into that fight or flight mode sometimes too, where you don't even know how to find the words. You're just so scared you're in this situation that you're just trying to, save yourself in a way.
There's also some people out there, and right or wrong, there are some people out there that feel she did do this willingly. She consented, and they have it on video. She consented, and they've got the text messages. It was regret after the fact that is making this become an issue. There was also a payout from Hockey Canada to her. That's the reason we know about this, is because Hockey Canada got audited. Initially, police in London investigated this and declined to lay charges. It wasn't until after the payout from Hockey Canada, the hush money, I'm assuming is what it was, that London police reopened the investigation and determined charges need to be laid. Now the jury has got to try and figure this out. And frankly, I don't know how the jury is going to do it, but I do know that on both sides, whatever that jury decides, people are going to be disappointed, because there are some people who feel she wanted it. She got what she wanted. She may have changed her mind afterwards or felt bad about it afterwards. But either way, in the moment, she did it and consented to it. There's other people, though, that are hearing this now thinking, how can you consent to something when you're having that out-of-body experience? But then others might say, well, how did the guys know she was having an out-of-body experience? She was into it. She didn't say no. They have her on video consenting to it. How can this be rape? And I'm trying to reconcile that in my head and try and figure out where we go from here. I think generally speaking, 5 guys tag teaming 1 girl in a hotel room, y'all should have known better and not ended up in that situation, especially when you have a potential pro hockey career in front of you. Yeah. You're representing Canada for the World Juniors and you end up in that situation. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't happen in sports.
It does. Yeah.
Sure it does. I've heard some horrible stories, to be honest with you, and no charges were ever laid there. In this particular case, it's a tricky one. And I'm really trying to sympathize with the girl. I'm really trying to understand where she's coming from and trying to understand what the motivation there was. How she ended up with 5 other guys in the room, where McLeod went, if anybody tried to stop this, if anybody once raised their hand and said, guys, wait a second, this is a little inappropriate and she seems a little drunk here. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Or did the whole thing seem very organic and natural and it was just a dirty fantasy for everybody involved and she changed her mind after the fact when she realized, yeah, I just did that with 5 guys.
Yeah. And just like to have the video, you know, that's the thing that's so weird to me, to make sure like we're covered. You know, if you have to question yourself and your actions enough to the point where you need to get video for consent, I mean, there's a slippery slope there, to be honest. And this was already under wraps. I mean, to have to go and relive this trauma again, I feel for her. I also feel for them to an extent. But this is where, you know, survivors or people who have dealt with sexual abuse or anything have a tough time coming forward and speaking truth because there is so much judgment. And they were all very young, and this is now going to follow them for the rest of their life. And I really hope on both ends that they get the help that they very much need to work through this post-traumatic stress that they're going to have.
If the jury finds these 5 guys
Good luck to them.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not cut and dried here.
It's so hard. It's not cut and dry. Testimony, I feel like this jury's going to be hung for a little while because trying to figure out who was right and who's wrong. And, you know, and then again, this is 2018. Many years have passed, and you can imagine your memory from a specific event from years ago is hard to recall sometimes.
Are you going to forget that? I mean, I could see why she would.
Not to that, but you do forget. You can go into a space in your mind where you can compartmentalize things and like, oh my gosh, put it away and then trying to revisit. Yeah, that did happen. Oh my, that's how people suppress things and try to move on with their life. So yeah, it can happen.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
I'm wondering about this too. Let's say this jury finds the players not guilty. Ooh, do you think that's a bad thing if they do?
To be honest, like I'm for both. Because like I can just see I'm a woman, you know, and I want to side with the woman because I'm a woman, but I also want to know everything to side because if that was my child or spouse, I'd want to make sure that everything was proven to be true. You know what I mean? So I want to be able to lend my support where the support is real and should be there. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It's just...
But you hear it often, like, you know, women go forward, they speak their truth or whatever the case may be, or somebody in that position. And then, you know, they're found not guilty and then she gets shamed. That follows. And then they go live their happy married life. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, well, let me ask you then, if these players are found not guilty, should they be allowed to return to their NHL teams? No questions asked.
Well, not guilty. Yeah. Nothing's been proven in court. That's the thing.
I think every one of these guys is done playing pro hockey.
I personally, but I can see why the opportunity would still be there for them to go and play because they could just, you know, you've seen it before. You've seen it in high profile athletes.
But again, this happens semi-regularly around the sports world. And believe it or not, there are some women out there who wait at various hotels. And
oh my gosh, yes.
To hook up with these players, because a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, some people feel this is their ticket to a better life.
Absolutely.
If you can just bang a hockey player and get pregnant, oh my God,
Gosh.
you just won the lottery.
Yes, they use turkey basters.
Well,
I'm just saying that is a very common thing, and you hear that often. That is their ticket. And even when their partners are unfaithful, they tend to look the other way because they've established this sort of lifestyle. It doesn't make it okay.
So if these guys are not guilty, even if they're not guilty, I don't think they're going back to their NHL teams. I think the NHL teams will probably find a way just to part ways with them because I don't think they want players on the team that have had this accusation, even though they would have been found not guilty. If they are found guilty, I would assume that it's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt that what they did was criminal. And right now I'm still trying to, based on what I know, I'm trying to figure out if it was criminal or not. Certainly inappropriate.
Inappropriate, life-changing, not in the way that you would have hoped, not the story you want to tell the grandkids one day. That's for damn sure. But I feel for the jurors because right now the information is so hard to comb through in terms of like consent, no consent, drunk, not drunk, into it, not into it, okay with this sexual act, not okay with that sexual act. It's a hard thing to really, when you have multiple partners in one, that's a night that they continue to live through. So I hope they do get the help that they need, each and every single person involved, and I hope they get the truth one way or another.
Does it make a difference who brought it up? What I mean by that is, hey, if McLeod said, hey, you still want more? I got a bunch of guys that I can get together and come over and do this for you. Or did she say, I'd love to have more. I'd like to have a threesome. I'd like to have more guys. Do you have any friends? Mm-hmm. Does it make a difference in determining guilt or innocence if it was her idea to bring in these other five guys?
Because when she says no, it's no. The idea could be interesting, and then they could all walk in and she'd be like, meh, I'm not into this. Or then all of a sudden they're like, come on, let's have some fun. Like, you were having fun. Like, why is he better than me? Like, trust me, you'll want me more.
Okay,
blah, blah, blah.
That's speculation. We don't know what happened.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where it's easy to then say, hey, you know what? I'm not really interested, even though I brought up the subject. You know, things change. Like, your minds change in an
Understood,
instance.
but she didn't say no. Like, nearest I can tell, at no point did she say no. I know that she felt bad and she was crying at one point. To me, I don't know why you would keep going after you can see that she's visibly upset. I don't understand that at all. But if she didn't actually say no and withdraw that consent, then again, I'm not sure where we're at here. But I'm also sympathetic to how can you say no when you're having that out-of-body experience, which I've never had, but I could certainly appreciate would happen.
And that's when people say that no comes across in different ways. So it's not just verbally. I know you're going to come and say no is no. You have to verbally say it. But that's where sometimes people, they lock up and they're just laying there and people take advantage. And you've heard survivors come forward later and say, why didn't you say it? They're like, oh, my body language, everything. I couldn't even find the words. So that's where it's hard to, to differentiate the no and being on autopilot. So
I'm wondering what changed too. London police have been at the center of numerous controversies over the years. If these guys are found guilty and those cops originally declined to lay charges, that is a massive scandal and every single person under that jurisdiction should want answers.
Yeah. Should they be investigated?
Well, if they declined to lay charges, now laid charges and a jury found, nope, not guilty, I think these players are owed an apology, and I also think London police are accountable for that too. Mm-hmm. So they're in a tough spot. I don't know where we go from here, but I certainly understand the sensitivities, and I'm aware that there's people who are discussing it. This is a water cooler conversation for some.
Yeah.
And as grotesque as that might sound to some, that people are sitting around talking about it as water cooler chat, all we get is what gets reported in the media. And there's people on all sides. Why would she end up in a room with five guys? How did that happen? Why didn't she say no? Why didn't she say stop? Why didn't she leave? Why didn't any of those players put up their hand and say, what are we doing? Mm-hmm. Get this poor woman a cab. Tell her to get dressed. Let's get her home and make sure that she gets into her bed safely and stop all the nonsense. Like, it seems like there's blame to go around here. I'm just wondering if we've crossed the threshold of criminal. That's what I'm trying to understand. And also, if this wasn't criminal, if this was completely consensual at the time, and when she woke up the next day, she had second thoughts and regrets about what she did, and then decided to go to the police and claim it wasn't consensual, then I feel bad for these hockey players who have had their career ruined, who they had a dirty night, but they didn't break the law. And there's so many different angles and moving parts here that I feel bad for a lot of different people.
I feel bad for a lot of different people too. And I mean, and I can't speak for everybody, but sometimes you wake up the next day after, a night out and you're like, oh my gosh, you have the blues, you feel ridiculous, you think about the night, and then you wish you could go back and change something. But yeah, I mean, if she had given the consent and she went for it, it's okay. You know, if you were in that moment and you felt like that was what you wanted to do, that's okay. You do you. There's no shame. That was your decision. But if you regret, again, is very different than, claiming to be raped because you didn't say no. Like, there's people's livelihoods and lives. Like, this is going to follow them forever. Every single person involved, this will be a life-changing moment for them. It's not just one night. Now this is multiple years in the making that they're never going to be able to escape this. And that's the scary part for me, to be honest with you, and trying to figure out if this is actually a criminal offense. Because right now it's he said, she said. I got this on video, but I also got this text message. And, why didn't somebody step in? Why didn't they do this? But that's the thing. I don't think we'll ever truly know.
Is there a takeaway here? Is there any advice here? Like, is it just...
Talk to your kids.
Talk to your kids. Yeah.
Legitimately. You don't even have to be a kid. Just know your surroundings, know your game strategy, know how you're going to... If you're going out with your friends, you have that conversation with your friends. We come together, we leave together. You know what I mean? That's just the way it goes. Talk to your kids. This is happening not in just hockey, in regular life, especially when you start at a drinking age, things change. Your impairment, who you are may change. It affects you in different ways. Talk to your kids. Honestly, consent, everything. If you're ever in a situation, what would you do? It's an uncomfortable situation to be in, to talk to your kid about this, but this is worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is an awkward conversation. Apparently, she told her mom when she got home. What did she tell her mom? Yeah. Did she say, I had sex with 6 different guys tonight?
Oh, that's the thing. And
does she say she was raped? Does she say I had consensual sex with one guy, but then 5 other guys came in? Like, I'm wondering how you even approach that subject with your parent. Well, she would have been basically a teenager at the time.
And her mother knew something was off in her demeanor. And then she started to cry. And it was her mother who then decided, there's something here. I need to call the police. And from there, this is where it all started. And
then back to my other question. Why did London police decline to lay charges? Was it as simple as the guy showed the video of her consenting and they said, okay, case closed?
I know,
because here we are 7 years later.
There's a misstep somewhere, and that's what they're trying to figure out.
It does seem that way.
There is a misstep.
Anna, we are 30 minutes in here, and since you're here anyway, before I get to the Alberta Premier stuff, let me just run a couple of quick stories by you and get your hot take, because there are people who listen to this pod daily who ask, why wasn't Anna on today? When's Anna going to be on again?
Oh, thank you.
I like Anna's opinion and perspective.
Okay.
The Competition Bureau is suing Canada's Wonderland for misleading online price claims. They allege Wonderland advertises lower prices than what consumers ultimately pay because of a mandatory online fee of nearly $10. The Bureau wants the Competition Tribunal to stop the park's alleged deceptive practice of advertising, imposing a penalty, and make Wonderland refund affected consumers. Canada's Wonderland calls the Competition Bureau's allegations unfounded and insists its fees are fully disclosed to customers. So first off, the long arm of the law has now reached out to Canada's Wonderland.
Oh my gosh.
The irony here is when you think about all the things that we need to fix in this country, all the different things that are wrong, when you think about all the different consumer practices that are unfair.
Yeah.
The one that comes to mind that we still have not figured out yet is concert tickets.
I'm with you on that because it's too expensive to go watch somebody perform live.
Absolutely. Concert tickets, sports tickets. There's so many examples, though, of how we may be being ripped off by unfair consumer practices. And these guys decided, press release and everything, they sent it out on social, we're going to go after Canada's Wonderland. And I'm thinking it's a business that's seasonal. It's only open 6 months a year. Everybody understands that you can buy tickets at the park or you can buy them online and there's a fee for online. In 2025, I don't understand why we're still charging a fee to make it more convenient and buy it online. I thought that was the goal, was to sell. If somebody wants to go to your website, you didn't even have to pay somebody to sit and take the money. Take the money.
Yeah.
You don't charge extra for an online purchase. If anything, you should be charging more for an in-person purchase. But that aside, that's the business plan that Wonderland has gone with. Is this really a good use of taxpayer money to go after
not.
Canada's Wonderland?
No, and to be honest, even when I go and pay for things and then I see this extra fee at the end, I have definitely dropped out of it. I'm like, oh, really? No, not today. And then I close out of it and it's their loss. So, but I think there's so many other things we should be focusing on rather than spending our money on something like this. Put it towards getting me some Leaf tickets for a reasonable price.
You know, why don't you figure out the gas stations? Why don't you figure out the grocery stores? Why is a head of broccoli from a specific manufacturer $3.99 at one store and $5.99 at another?
Because they wilt at the same rate, I'll tell you.
It's insanity, Anna. I can't believe the Competition Bureau is actually bragging that they're going after Wonderland. Figure it out.
Somebody over the water cooler, you know what, Joe? I'm going to do this. And then, Bob is like, yeah, I'm going to back you up. And here we are. I don't know Joe or Bob, but they wouldn't be my best friends today.
Okay, now I want to play something for you. You've likely seen the photo that President Donald J. Trump shared of him as the Pope. Were you offended as a Catholic that Donald Trump put out an image of himself dressed as the Pope?
I'm not surprised because he does think he's holy, in my opinion. But it is offensive and unnecessary. But he's also the man who posted that he could take on a gorilla.
Right.
So this is very on brand.
So
I feel like it's not as surprising. It was just timing of it all, considering he went to the Pope's funeral and all.
I'm a Catholic. No, I don't think anybody should impersonate the Pope, although I've seen it at Halloween and many other examples. I don't think that what Trump did was necessarily completely out in left field, but I do think it was inappropriate, especially since he was joking that he might like to be the Pope.
Right.
So, New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan was asked about Donald Trump dressing as the Pope. This is about 20 seconds long. Here's what he had to say.
Non era buono. No.
Can you say that in English?
He asked me about the president appearing as the Pope.
Yeah.
I hope he didn't have anything to do with that.
Are you offended by that?
Well, it wasn't good. Gli italiani dicono una brutta figura.
Yeah, the way
Boy, though, that babble's really paying off. I got what he was saying. Yeah. So he doesn't think that was appropriate. I don't disagree with the Cardinal. It was wildly inappropriate. I don't know what Trump is thinking.
He's not. He's in his own world. He was like, oh, this seems like a good idea. I'm going to just put it out there. But he does that. He throws things out and, for the conversation. And you're almost like, it's Donald Trump. So flippant. Yeah, that makes sense. It's, again, very on brand.
Yesterday, a reporter asked Donald Trump about that image. Here's what he had to say.
We're not so happy about the image of you looking like the Pope.
Oh, I see. You mean they can't take a joke? You don't mean the Catholics. You mean the fake news media. Not the Catholics loved it. I had nothing to do with it. Somebody made up a picture of me dressed like the Pope, and they put it out on the internet. That's not me that did it. I have no idea where it came from. Maybe it was AI, but I know nothing about it. I just saw it last evening. Actually, my wife thought it was cute. She said, isn't that nice? Actually, I would not be able to be married, though. That would be a lot. I'd have to the best of my knowledge, popes aren't big on getting married, are they? Not that we know of, no. I think it's the fake news media that, they're fakers.
We'll leave it there.
Gosh, I can't. I can't with that man.
I sympathize with Trump in that he does get unfair media coverage from time to time. And yes, I certainly know that there is a fake news media out there. We have a similar phenomenon here in Canada. That's not the media making up hype that Catholics are angry, though. Catholics don't like anything like that. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump leaned right into it. For him to say he doesn't know anything about it is ridiculous. He shared the photo.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he didn't make it. He shared it.
And then to go on like, oh, I wouldn't be married and make light and joke. I can tell you, my family's very Catholic. And no, they were not pleased.
Yeah, I haven't even seen my in-laws since that happened. I'm afraid to know.
Yeah, take some time. Yeah.
Another one. Tim Hortons has partnered with Ryan Reynolds on a new breakfast box. Anna, this is developed, they say, in conjunction with Ryan Reynolds, although I don't know what he actually had to do with it. They say it comes with bacon or sausage varieties, 2 scrambled eggs, hash browns, and chipotle sauce. This is part of Tim's 60th anniversary menu. For those who don't exactly know what that means, I think the best way to explain it is this. They made a farmer's breakfast wrap, scrambled egg, mashed up hash brown, and bacon or sausage. And rather than keep it in the wrap, they dumped it in a box and said, here you go. I saw the picture of it, and frankly, it didn't seem all that appetizing to me.
Yeah.
But I can see why some people might like this.
Well, they like it because it's Ryan Reynolds. It's that effect of the celebrity lending its name. I have to agree with you. Like, how much did he actually involve? Is it his real recipe? Like, what is it? The Chipotle sauce? Like, that's his claim to fame in it. Like,
what
it
did you
doesn't
come
make
up with, Ryan?
You know, like, then my gosh, we'd all be chefs and out there supporting different brand deals. But people will buy it because it is Ryan Reynolds. However, that seems like Tim Hortons is supposed to be fast, go, move. If you're out there dicing and chopping and putting together and cooking eggs, then again, I said this before, I don't want to wait in the lineup. You better be going inside to order that, because if you're causing me 5 to 10 minutes in a lineup waiting for my coffee, no.
They
not
need
happy.
A coffee only line.
I agree. Thank you. That's
Enough's
genius.
enough. It's 2025. Figure it out.
Genius.
Like, come on, Tim's.
Yeah, so I think it will do well for its 60th anniversary. I think they're smart. He's a well-known Canadian. But how much he actually lent of himself besides his name, that's up for discussion.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says he is going to move into his new digs at Rideau Cottage very soon, while the official residence of the Prime Minister, 24 Sussex Drive in Ottawa, remains vacant. The Privy Council's office says at the strong recommendation of the RCMP and security officials, Carney has temporarily been staying at an official guest residence, but will soon move into Rideau Cottage, presumably as soon as Trudeau is moved out. The cottage has been the residence of the Prime Minister and his family since former Prime Minister Trudeau took office in 2015. Trudeau never once lived at 24 Sussex Drive. It was closed by the National Capital Commission in 2022 for health and safety reasons. Now, for those who haven't been able to follow along, let me talk just a second here about government waste. We have an official residence of the Prime Minister in this country, 24 Sussex Drive. The last person to live there was Stephen and Lorraine Harper. When Justin Trudeau got elected in 2015, him and his wife walked in and said, "Oh, this place is not up to our standards. We are not living here. We're going to go live at Rideau Cottage," which is on the grounds of Rideau Hall, which is where the Governor General lives. In fact, the Governor General and the Prime Minister are neighbors now because there's no one living at 24 Sussex. And I remember when Trudeau wouldn't move in, I thought, well, the Harpers were just there and it was fine. Like, we saw some photos. It seemed to be in fine shape. Trudeau said it was disgusting and he would never live there.
Oh, my gosh.
So then they were trying to push to build a new 24 Sussex, and I'm assuming that's going to happen because the National Parks Commission shut down Rideau, or 24 Sussex, back in 2022. My question is, if one of your entire jobs as the National Parks Commission is to maintain the official residence of the Prime Minister and the Governor General, what the hell happened that this place ended up full of mold? Who didn't do their job? And now they say it's going to cost millions to rip it down and build a new mansion for the Prime Minister.
Oh my gosh. In a housing crisis that we're in, this is like, no.
Hey, listen, the Prime Minister has got some cool stuff.
Right?
The cottage at Harrington Lake that Justin Trudeau had rebuilt because the original cottage wasn't good enough. So he had a new cottage built, cost us millions. And then they built a barn at the Rideau property. And that cost millions for a barn. I don't know why we didn't round up a bunch of Amish guys and pay them to do it, because it would have been much better built.
Yeah,
and
sturdy.
In a day, probably. But no, we didn't do that. And now, apparently, 24 Sussex is so disgusting, we have to rip it down. And again, what that tells me is somebody didn't do their job if this house became that unlivable that quickly. What happened here? Whose fault is it? And what contractor is charging us millions to tear down a house and build a new one? There's a ton of contractors.
No doubt.
Take a drive along Lakeshore in Burlington and Oakville.
Yeah.
Any one of those people specializes in ripping down houses and building new ones. It doesn't cost millions of dollars, even if you are building a mansion.
If it's being made out of gold, like, give me a break. No, this is just a wild story of
what a waste of our money.
Of the rich in that sense. Like, but yeah, who let this happen? They're obviously no longer there, or are they? And they're the same ones who let it go. Now they're taking it down and they're going to rebuild it and want more money for it.
Exactly.
Right?
It's
honestly,
incredibly dishonest, I think, what's going on.
It is. And oh my gosh, poor you. I can't live where the Harpers lived. Like, I didn't really realize that story, but That's just the taste in your mouth.
It was fine. Trudeau was just
Of course it was fine.
Trudeau's used to live. He did originally live at 24 Sussex with his dad.
Yes.
It still bugs me the amount of money they spent on that cottage at Harrington
But
Lake.
that's what I mean. There's like real struggles in the world. Like, and you're thinking about, I'm going to spend millions to rebuild this house. Now, give those millions to people who can't afford housing right now. And then hopefully they can then purchase something for themselves, even if it's a tiny home.
Well, somebody's got to figure this out.
There.
If we have to rebuild Stornoway because it's cheaper than getting rid of the mold or whatever the actual problem is, fine. Do it once, and then it's going to last for 500 years.
Yeah, 500 years. And, that's a good amount of time. You have somebody to watch the mold. Your job is stand here and watch the walls.
But we have an entire government department whose job it is to keep these things up and running. How did this one fall through the cracks? It's the residence of the prime minister. If that had happened at the White House, heads would roll.
Oh, I know. But here it's like, sorry. Oh, it's okay.
Oh, mold? Oh, we didn't notice. Sorry. Okay, Anna.
Okay.
I've taken up too much of your time.
No, I've had a blast.
Thank you. It was great talking to you. I appreciate your perspective and a female perspective, particularly on that Hockey Canada story. I don't know where we're going to go from there, but I do feel bad for all involved at the moment. That may change, depend on guilt or innocence, but for now, a terrible situation, and I hope that whatever the case may be, justice is done. And if there's been a false accusation, I hope justice is done. If this actually did happen and it's just as the woman describes and these guys did something criminal, I hope they're punished appropriately.
I agree with you 110%. It's just such a triggering story for so many, and I do hope everybody gets the help that they need. So absolutely going forward.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
My fellow Albertans, today I wish to speak to you about the future of Alberta and Canada. Albertans have always been loyal, proud, and generous Canadians. We love Canada. We have fought wars and died defending Canada. We've opened our doors wide for millions of our fellow Canadians searching for opportunity, many of whom stay and become Albertan, and many who return home to their native province. All have been welcomed with open arms. Our province has contributed hundreds of billions of dollars more to the federal treasury for use in other parts of the country than we'll ever receive back in benefits. We know how blessed our province is with an endowment of natural resources that no other country on earth possesses. And we want all of our friends, families, and fellow Canadians across the country to benefit from it. We don't ask for special treatment or handouts. We just want to be free to develop and export that incredible wealth of resources we have for the benefit of our families and future generations. Free to pursue opportunities with the ideals of entrepreneurship, hard work, and innovation that have become synonymous with the name of our province. Freedom to choose how best to provide healthcare, education, and other needed social services to our people, even if it's done differently than what Ottawa has in mind. Strong and free is more than just our provincial motto. It represents who we are and how we want to live as a people. And that is why Albertans are so frustrated with the direction of our country.
That is the opening remarks from Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, who did an address to Albertans yesterday. It's not getting a ton of attention, and I think that that's intentional. I don't think the mainstream media is giving this much attention throughout Ontario, Quebec, and other parts of Canada because I don't know that if they can accept it, and I don't know if they want this being discussed openly. But this is a real thing. Yesterday, the table was set for Alberta to hold a referendum on sovereignty. A Canada possibly without Alberta. Now, there's sovereignty and there's separation. And it's possible a referendum could be held on that as early as next year. Yesterday was a surreal day for me. Reminded me a lot of when Quebec wanted to separate back in the 90s. The difference is Alberta here has got a strong leader in Danielle Smith who did a really good job at laying out the argument. Let me play a little bit more of Premier Smith.
Having traveled much of the world these past few years, it is evident that Canada is not viewed as an attractive place to invest in resource development, manufacturing, or agriculture because of our high carbon taxes, endless red tape, and the uncertainty and chaos brought about by these and other federal government policies. As a result, Canada has fallen to dead last in economic growth among industrialized nations. The world looks at us like we've lost our minds. We have the most abundant and accessible natural resources of any country on earth, and yet we landlock them, sell what we do produce to a single customer to the south of us, while enabling polluting dictatorships to eat our lunch. For Albertans, these attacks on our province by our own federal government have become unbearable. As I said, these policies have cost Albertans roughly $500 billion in investment, and that loss is growing daily. It has and will continue to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, robbing countless Albertans and other Canadians of their means of providing for their families. It has cost us a decade of opportunities and tens of billions in lost royalties that could have been invested in the health, education, infrastructure, and social services Albertans and Canadians need. And what's worse, Ottawa continues onward with more destructive policies. They have imposed net zero mandates on our natural gas-based power grid, causing investment in reliable generation from natural gas to flee, thereby endangering the future stability of our power grid and risking future blackouts and spikes in electricity costs for Alberta families and businesses. They have attacked our food producers with methane taxes, onerous regulations on fertilizer, electric vehicle mandates, and many other destructive policies that have hiked costs on our farmers and ranchers and driven billions of dollars of investment in agriculture elsewhere.
Premier Smith laying out the argument for why Albertans are upset. Do you sympathize with them? I think that we're probably going to be split on that. I think that there are some people in this country who think, she's just a separatist. We don't need to deal with her. Forget Danielle Smith. Forget Alberta. We don't want anything to do with them. They're separatists. I think the vast majority, though, if I'm being honest, can hear that and think, yeah, Alberta got a real bad deal. Alberta could be an extremely wealthy province contributing to the country here, but we have landlocked the resources and put a lot of onerous restrictions on them. People in Alberta have known this for a long time, but I feel like because of the tariff discussion, more Canadians are starting to become aware of the challenges that Alberta faces. So yesterday, Premier Smith laid out 4 things that Alberta wants. 4 things that Prime Minister Mark Carney needs to address, or else. Listen to this.
We have fought these attacks from Ottawa furiously and have won some important battles. But the lost opportunities, jobs, and futures of so many Albertans are costly and demoralizing, as are the growing number of Eastern politicians who choose to openly demonize and target Alberta for political gain. That is why a large majority of Albertans are so deeply frustrated with the results of last week's federal election. It's not that our preferred candidate and party lost. That happens in a democracy. Is that the same Liberal government with almost all the same ministers responsible for our nation's inflation, housing, crime, and budget crisis, and that oversaw the attack on our provincial economy for the past 10 years, have been returned to power. Now, as we all know, one thing has changed. We have a new Prime Minister. And I will say that in my first conversation with him since the election, he had some promising things to say about changing the direction of his government's anti-resource policies. However, Albertans are more of a actions speak louder than words kind of people. So while I will in good faith work with Prime Minister Mark Carney on unwinding the mountain of destructive legislation and policies that have ravaged our provincial and national economies this past decade, until I see tangible proof of real change, Alberta will be taking steps to better protect ourselves from Ottawa. As a start, I will soon appoint a special negotiating team to represent our province in negotiations with the federal government on the following reforms requested by our province. We hope this will result in a binding agreement that Albertans can have confidence in. Call it an Alberta Accord, if you will. First, Alberta requires guaranteed corridor and port access to tidewater off the Pacific, Arctic, and Atlantic coasts for the international export of Alberta oil, gas, critical minerals and other resources in amounts supported by the free market rather than by the dictates and whims of Ottawa. Every province in the country, other than Alberta and Saskatchewan, have coastal port access, and no province needs it more given the size and value of our resources. This will benefit all Canadians to the tune of trillions of dollars of economic activity, including billions for First Nations partners. Second, the federal government must end all federal interference in the development of provincial resources by repealing the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, the oil tanker ban, the net zero electricity regulations, the oil and gas emissions cap, the net zero vehicle mandate, and any federal law or regulation that purports to regulate industrial carbon emissions, plastics, or the commercial free speech of energy companies. These laws are destroying investment confidence and costing Canada and Alberta hundreds of billions in investments each year. They need to go. Third, the federal government must refrain from imposing export taxes or restrictions on the export of Alberta resources without the consent of the government of Alberta. Frankly, all provinces should be given that same respect for their resources. And fourth, the federal government must provide to Alberta the same per capita federal transfers and equalization as is received by the other three largest provinces, Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia. We have no issue with Alberta continuing to subsidize smaller provinces with their needs, but there is no excuse for such large and powerful economies like Ontario, Quebec, BC, or Alberta to be subsidizing one another. That was never the intent of equalization, and it needs to end.
Those are the four demands from Alberta. I don't hear anything in there that's unreasonable. Personally, I don't. And I say that as, I guess I'm a federalist. I don't want to see the end of Canada. Danielle Smith in a second is going to say she doesn't want to see the end of Canada either. But these things must be addressed for the Alberta people. So where do we go from here? Is Alberta separating? No, not necessarily. Here is Danielle Smith clarifying what happens next.
After the work of the panel is finished, it is likely we will place some of the more popular ideas discussed with the panel to a provincial referendum so that all Albertans can vote on them sometime in 2026. To be clear from the outset, our government will not be putting a vote on separation from Canada on the referendum ballot. However, if there is a successful citizen-led referendum petition that is able to gather the requisite number of signatures requesting such a question to be put on a referendum, our government will respect the democratic process and include that question on the 2026 provincial referendum ballot as well.
Separation is on the table. They'll have no problem collecting 177,000 signatures from Albertans that are interested in separation, or at least interested in having a vote on separation. They'll have no problem getting that amount. So now I'm fully expecting that if Ottawa doesn't meet those four demands that Alberta laid out, there's going to be an Alberta referendum on separation. One other thing I want to point out here is Danielle Smith pointed out quite correctly that different people are going to feel different ways about this. And she's going to address that in her own words. I think this is very important. Please listen to the Premier.
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, that being separation. We are well aware that there is a large and growing number of Albertans that have lost hope in Alberta having a free and prosperous future as a part of Canada. Many of these Albertans are organizing petitions to trigger a citizen-initiated referendum, as I mentioned earlier. The vast majority of these individuals are not fringe voices to be marginalized or vilified. They are loyal Albertans. They are quite literally our friends and neighbors who've just had enough of having their livelihoods and prosperity attacked by a hostile federal government. They're frustrated, and they have every reason to be. I want to talk directly to those Albertans. I know how frustrated so many of you have become with our country and the feeling of having politicians living thousands of miles away, passing laws and rules that have cost you your loved ones, jobs, careers, dreams, and opportunities for a brighter future. As most Albertans know, I have repeatedly stated I do not support Alberta separating from Canada. I personally still have hope that there is a path forward for a strong and sovereign Alberta within a united Canada.
Okay, I'm just going to fast forward a little bit here to where she gets to the other side of this. Basically, where the premier is going with this is don't do it. The inclination from the elbows up, folks, is going to be to demonize those who are in favor of Alberta separation. They are going to call them names. They're going to shame them. They're going to do the whole 9 yards. I'm already seeing it coming from senior members of the media, already trying to demonize those who might support separation. Don't do it. Don't do it. Danielle Smith has laid out all the reasons that Albertans are unhappy. If they decide as a people they want to separate, we've got to accept it. But I don't think it needs to get to that. They're not asking for much. They just want to change around the system and level the playing field. They want to be able to use their resources. Do we seriously disagree with that? It benefits all of us. I don't know why we wouldn't and push them further out the door. But Danielle Smith is going to make an appeal, not just to protect the people who do want to separate, but also to protect those who want to stay. This is very well done.
In closing, I want Albertans to know how important it will be in the coming months for our province to be steadfast, unified, and to refrain from heeding the voices of those seeking to divide Albertans against one another. There will be many outside and even inside this province who will try and sow fear and anger among us. They will seek to divide us into different camps for the purposes of marginalizing and vilifying one another based on differing opinions, effectively pitting neighbor against neighbor and Albertan against Albertan. This is not the Alberta way. It's not who we are, and it's not who I am. There are thousands of Albertans who are so frustrated with the last 10 years of Ottawa's attacks on their friends' and families' livelihoods that they feel Alberta would be stronger and more prosperous as an independent nation. That is an understandable and justifiable feeling to have, even if we disagree on what to do about it. These Albertans are not traitors, nor should they ever be treated as such. They just love their province and family and want a better future than the one Ottawa is offering them right now. There are also thousands of Albertans that are so attached and loyal to their identity as Canadians that there is nothing Ottawa has done to our province that would justify Alberta leaving Canada. It's not that they think everything is perfect or that we've been treated fairly. They just believe being part of Canada, despite those problems, has much more value than leaving. These individuals are also loyal Albertans and should never be accused of being anything less. And then there are hundreds of thousands of Albertans that probably feel a lot like I do, that are deeply frustrated with the way our province has been mistreated and damaged by successive federal Liberal governments and are not willing to tolerate the status quo any longer. But these Albertans still believe there is a viable path to a strong, free, and sovereign Alberta empowered to succeed and prosper within a united Canada. A Canada where the federal government actually honors the Constitution, upholds provincial rights, and empowers provinces to pursue their unique potentials as their people so choose.
I will leave the premier there. I think that's an important message to get out there, and she is absolutely right. Danielle Smith has learned a thing or two from the last 10 years and learned a thing or two from watching the Liberal government, the people that are governing us now, those people that are going to be in cabinet in 2 weeks, the people that are running this country. That's the play. Divide, conquer. They're going to try and pit people into two camps, and they're going to shame the separatists, and they're going to try and get neighbors angry at neighbors to try and stop this. And that is not the right approach. The right approach is address Alberta's problems with respect, and let's solve the problem. That is how we work our way out of this. But friends, right now, we're about to go into a national unity crisis, and that makes me sad, but we knew this was coming. We knew this could be a consequence of the election, and it looks like Alberta is probably going to be having a referendum on separation sometime next year. I will let you go for today, everybody. I want to watch this Mark Carney, Donald Trump stuff. I'll have a report on that for you tomorrow in Scott Fox After 9. Right now, I will leave you with the sounds of Pat James and The Whole Truth. Hey now, have a great day.
Oh, yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh, yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.